My wife told me we were roommates on a Thursday night, standing by the sink with a wine glass in her hand, like she was reading from a script. "We're just roommates," Marissa said. Her voice was flat, professional, the same tone she used when declining vendor pitches at work. "That's what we are now. I think we should acknowledge it." I looked up from my laptop. The kitchen light made her face look angular, carved. She'd changed her hair recently, lighter at the ends. I'd noticed, but hadn't commented. Comments required caring. "Okay," I said. She blinked. I could see her recalibrating, searching my face for the argument she'd prepared for. I gave her nothing, just went back to scrolling through facility maintenance reports like she'd announced we were out of milk. "That's it?" she asked. "Just okay? What do you want me to say?" I closed the laptop, leaned back in my chair. "You're right. We sleep in separate rooms. We barely talk. We split the mortgage. Sounds like roommates to me." Her fingers tightened on the stem of the glass. Good. Let her feel off balance for once. "I'm glad you understand," she said, recovering quickly. "I just think it's healthier if we're honest about what this is. No expectations, no obligations." "Sure." I stood up, pushed my chair in carefully. "So I don't owe you anything, and you don't owe me anything." "Exactly." I walked past her toward the hallway. She smelled different lately. A new perfume, something expensive and sharp. I'd noticed that too, along with the way she angled her phone away when texts came in, the way she'd started showering at odd hours, the way her work dinners had tripled in the last 2 months. "Where are you going?" she called after me. "My room," I said without turning around. "Roommates don't need to explain their schedules, right?" I heard her exhale, sharp and irritated. But she didn't follow. In what used to be our bedroom and was now just hers, I could hear her moving around, the soft click of her closet door, the buzz of her phone on the nightstand. I sat on the edge of my bed in the guest room and stared at the wall. The house felt wrong. It had for weeks. The air was different, charged with something I couldn't name. Like the moment before a storm when you can feel the pressure change in your bones. I'd known something was happening. Not with proof, not with certainty, but with the kind of pattern recognition you develop after 7 years of marriage. The new password on her phone that she'd changed without explanation. The playlist I'd never heard before that showed up in her recently played. The conference schedule that didn't quite match the dates on her calendar. I'd checked once, casually, when she left her planner open on the kitchen counter. She'd written Atlanta conference for last Thursday, but I'd seen the credit card charge from a hotel downtown. Same city, different story. I hadn't said anything. Hadn't screamed or confronted or begged. I'd just watched, collected, noticed. My phone sat on the nightstand, the screen dark. There was a notification I hadn't opened yet. A preview of a message from someone named Grant that had popped up on her phone 2 weeks ago when she'd left it on the bathroom counter. I'd seen it for exactly 2 seconds before the screen went black. Dinner was perfect. Next time, let's skip the crowd. I'd memorized it. Every word. The casual intimacy of it. The assumption of a next time. I picked up my own phone now, opened a blank note, and typed 4 words. "We're just roommates." Then I added one more line underneath. "Fine. Then I'll start acting like the landlord." I didn't know what that meant yet. Didn't have a plan. But something had shifted in me during that kitchen conversation. Something cold and final. If Marissa wanted to rewrite our relationship into something transactional, then I could learn to transact. I saved the note, turned off the light, lay there in the dark listening to the house settle around me. Somewhere in the walls, the pipes groaned. In her room, Marissa's phone buzzed again. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. I closed my eyes and thought about that word she'd used. Roommates. It almost sounded reasonable, civilized, like a mutual agreement between 2 adults who'd simply grown apart. But I knew what it really was. It was a script. A story she was telling herself to make whatever was happening feel justified. To make me the one who'd failed to keep up. I wondered who'd taught her that script, who'd given her permission to strip 7 years down to a rental agreement. My phone vibrated, a calendar reminder. I had a doctor's appointment tomorrow morning, something routine I'd scheduled weeks ago. Annual checkup, basic panel. I almost canceled it, then didn't. Because if we were roommates, if we were strangers sharing a lease, then I owed her nothing. Not trust, not faith, not the benefit of the doubt. And roommates don't share consequences. I turned over, pulled the blanket up, and tried to sleep. But every sound in the house felt amplified, every creak and shift, every distant buzz from her phone. The house felt like it was waiting, like it knew something I didn't, or maybe it knew exactly what I was beginning to suspect. That the woman in the other room, the one with the new perfume and the new passwords and the new story about what we were, had already left this marriage. She just hadn't bothered to pack her bags yet. The clinic smelled like industrial cleaner and bad coffee. I sat in the waiting room with a clipboard, filling out the same forms I'd filled out a dozen times before. Current medications, family history, reason for visit. I wrote routine panel in the blank space and wondered if routine was even the right word anymore. Nothing felt routine. The house didn't. The marriage didn't. The way I'd started checking Marissa's calendar against the credit card statements didn't. The receptionist called my name. I followed her back to a small exam room with fluorescent lights that hummed too loud and a paper-covered table that crinkled when I sat down. The nurse took my blood pressure, my temperature, my weight, asked me the standard questions in a voice that suggested she'd asked them 1,000 times today already. "Any concerns?" she said, typing into a tablet. "Just the usual panel," I said. "Nothing specific." She nodded, made a note, left me alone in the room. I sat there under the flickering lights and thought about the phrase Marissa had used last night. No expectations, no obligations. It was the kind of language that sounded like therapy but felt like a weapon, clean, detached, designed to make me the one being unreasonable if I pushed back. The doctor came in, a tired-looking woman in her 50s with efficient hands and a professional smile. She reviewed my chart, asked about stress, sleep, diet. I gave her the answers she expected. Fine, good enough, managing. "We'll run the standard labs," she said, already halfway to the door. "Results should be back in a few days. Anything else?" I hesitated, then said, "Can you add an extended panel? Full workup?" She paused, turned back. "Any particular reason?" "Just want to be thorough," I said. She studied me for a second longer than necessary, then nodded. "Sure, we can do that." When she left, I sat there staring at the anatomical posters on the wall. The human heart, labeled and color-coded. The skeletal system. The nervous system, branching out like a tree. I didn't know what I expected the tests to tell me. Didn't know if I even wanted confirmation of what I already suspected. But I needed something concrete. Something that couldn't be argued or rewritten or explained away with therapy language. Because feelings could be dismissed. Suspicions could be called paranoia. Lab results were just numbers. I checked out at the desk, scheduled a follow-up, walked out into the parking lot. The sun was too bright after the dim clinic lights. I sat in my car for a minute, scrolling through my phone. I opened the shared calendar Marissa and I kept. Technically kept. She'd stopped updating her side weeks ago, but I could still see the entries she'd made before that. Tonight, she'd marked work dinner from 6 to 9. I checked the time, just past noon. I opened another app, one I'd downloaded a week ago, and immediately regretted. Our phone plan still had location sharing turned on from years back when we'd both thought it was practical, convenient, a way to know if someone was running late or needed help. We'd never turned it off. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. Marissa's location dot sat in the middle of downtown, at an address I didn't recognize. I zoomed in, a restaurant, high-end place, the kind with tablecloths and a wine list that required a sommelier. At noon on a Tuesday. When she'd told me this morning she had back-to-back meetings all day and probably wouldn't answer her phone. I closed the app, put the phone face down on the passenger seat. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I thought I'd feel rage or heartbreak or something sharp and immediate. Instead, I just felt cold, calculating. I started the car, pulled out of the clinic parking lot, and drove toward downtown. Not because I wanted a confrontation, not because I was ready to blow everything up, just because I wanted to see. The restaurant was tucked between two glass office buildings, the kind of place where deals got made over steak and whiskey. I parked across the street, 2 rows back, and waited. 10 minutes passed. 15. Then I saw her. Marissa walked out of the restaurant with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, mid-30s, expensive suit. They weren't touching, but they stood close. Too close. The kind of proximity that suggested familiarity. He said something. She laughed, tilted her head back. Her hand came up to touch his arm just for a second. Then they separated. She walked toward the parking garage. He went the opposite direction. I sat there with my engine off, watching them disappear. My phone buzzed. A text from Nolan Pike, my friend from hospital security. We'd worked together for 5 years, long enough that we'd moved past the professional boundary into actual friendship. You around? Need to ask you something about vendor badges. I typed back. Yeah. Coffee later? Sure. 3 work? Perfect. I put the phone down, started the car, drove home. The house was empty when I got there. I walked through the rooms, noticing things I'd stopped seeing. The separate toothbrushes in the bathroom, the closed door to her bedroom, the way my coffee mug sat alone in the dish rack. I went to my laptop, opened a new document, and started writing. A timeline. Dates I remembered. Patterns I'd noticed. 3 weeks ago, new perfume. 2 weeks ago, password changed. 10 days ago, calendar entry deleted, credit card charge in different city. Last week, work dinner that lasted until midnight. I kept going, adding details, building a structure, not for a confrontation, not yet, just for myself, to see if the pattern made sense, to see if I was being paranoid or perceptive. By the time I was done, I had 2 pages of notes, and they all pointed the same direction. I met Nolan at a coffee shop near the hospital, one of those places with mismatched furniture and acoustic guitars on the wall. He was already at a corner table when I arrived, big guy with a permanent squint from years of staring at security monitors. Thanks for meeting, he said as I sat down. Quick question. You handle vendor badge access, right? Yeah, I said. Facilities management. Why? He stirred his coffee, not looking at me. Got a weird pattern. Sales rep from a medical device company keeps showing up at odd hours. Nothing against policy, but the timing's strange. After hours, weekends, always checks in at the main lobby but never logs a meeting. Something in my chest tightened. Company name? Vitamed Solutions. He pulled out his phone, showed me a log entry. Guy's name is Grant Voss. I stared at the screen. The name didn't mean anything to me, but the company did. Marissa had mentioned Vitamed before, something about a partnership her department was handling. Why are you flagging it? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Compliance audit next month, Nolan said. HR wants us to document vendor patterns. Make sure nobody's bypassing meeting protocols. He paused. Why? You know him? No, I said. Just sounds familiar. Nolan studied me for a second. He'd known me long enough to read the spaces between words. You okay, man? You look tired. I'm fine, I said. Just a lot going on. He didn't push. That was one of the things I liked about Nolan. He knew when to let things sit. We finished our coffee, talked about work for another 10 minutes, then parted ways. I walked back to my car thinking about that name. Grant Voss. I pulled out my phone, typed it into a search engine. LinkedIn profile came up first. Professional headshot, big smile. Sales director at Vitamed Solutions, based locally, married according to the family photo in the background of one post. I scrolled through his timeline. Industry events, client dinners, conference photos. In one picture from 3 weeks ago, I saw her, Marissa, standing in a group shot at some healthcare networking event. Grant was 2 people to her left, both of them smiling for the camera. Not proof, not even close. But another piece of the pattern. I closed the browser, checked the shared calendar again. Tonight, work dinner, 6 to 9. I looked at my watch. 4:30. I made a decision. The hospital parking garage was a concrete maze, 7 levels of bad lighting and echoing footsteps. I knew it better than most people because facilities management meant I'd spent hours here dealing with gate malfunctions and burned-out lights and security camera blind spots. I parked on the 5th level near the stairwell and waited. I didn't have a plan. Didn't know what I was looking for. I just had a guess based on location patterns and the sick feeling in my stomach that told me I was right. At 6:15, Marissa's car pulled onto the 5th level. I watched from inside the stairwell, door cracked just enough to see without being seen. She parked in a corner spot, away from the cameras. I knew that corner. Everyone in facilities knew it. It was the only section on 5 where the camera angle didn't quite cover. She got out of her car, checked her phone, waited. 3 minutes later, another car pulled up beside hers. A black sedan. The driver's door opened. Grant Voss stepped out. I watched them meet near the elevator lobby. Watched the way he touched her lower back. Watched the way she leaned into him, just slightly, the kind of casual intimacy that comes from repetition. They talked for maybe 2 minutes. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see their faces. His expression was easy, confident. Hers was softer than I'd seen in months. Then they separated. She walked toward the elevator. He went back to his car. The whole exchange lasted less than 5 minutes. Quick. Practiced. Routine. I stayed in the stairwell after they left, breathing through the tightness in my chest. I'd been right. That was the worst part. I'd been absolutely right. I started to leave, to head back down to my car, when I heard voices echoing up from the level below. "Announcement has to be clean," a woman's voice said, female, professional tone. "Dana wants everything locked down before the gala." I know. That was Grant. 2 weeks. We'll have it handled by then. Your part better be airtight. If this falls apart because of vendor drama. It won't, Grant said, his voice sharp now. I've got it under control. Footsteps. They were moving toward the stairs. I pressed back into the corner, making myself small. The door above me swung open and they walked past, still talking, heading down. I waited until I couldn't hear them anymore. Then I counted to 30. Pulled out my phone and made a note. Gala, 2 weeks. Dana wants announcement clean. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I knew it mattered. I left the garage through the ground-level exit, taking the long way back to my car. When I got there, I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the concrete wall in front of me. My phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. "Running late. Don't wait up." I typed back, "Okay." Then I opened my notes and added another line to the timeline. Grant Voss, medical device sales, access to hospital, meeting pattern with Marissa confirmed, and something bigger, something public, something happening in 2 weeks. I started the car and drove home. The house was dark when I got there, empty and quiet. I walked through the rooms, turning on lights, trying to make it feel less like a crime scene. In the kitchen, I made coffee I didn't want. Sat at the table. Thought about the way Marissa had looked in that parking garage, the way she'd leaned into him, the way her face had softened. I thought about the man who wasn't her roommate, and I thought about that word. Gala. I pulled out my laptop, started searching. Hospital foundation events, regional healthcare conferences, corporate charity nights, founded on the third page of results, annual healthcare excellence gala, 2 weeks from Friday, black tie event, major sponsors, awards ceremony. I clicked through to the event page, read the program description. Join us as we celebrate innovation in regional healthcare and announce this year's community partnership initiatives. Announcement. Partnership. Clean. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Whatever Marissa was doing, whatever she'd gotten herself tangled up in, it was building towards something public, something that mattered enough to require a clean image and controlled timing. And for the first time since she'd said the word roommates, I felt something other than cold calculation. I felt like I'd found the edge of the map, the place where the pattern stopped being theory and started becoming leverage. My phone buzzed again, another text from Marissa. Probably won't be home until late. Long meeting. I typed back one word. Okay. Then I opened a new document and started writing. Not a timeline this time. A plan. I found Tessa Voss through a donor list. It wasn't hard. The hospital foundation published names of contributors every quarter, and I had access to the distribution through work. Grant's company was listed as a bronze sponsor. So was a family foundation under the name Voss. A little more searching led me to a public charity page with family photos. Grant and a woman with dark hair and sharp eyes. Tessa. The smile in the photo looked practiced, the kind you make for cameras when you've learned how to fake warmth. I found her email through a volunteer roster for a local arts program. Professional address. Clean. Public. I sat at my desk in the empty house, staring at the blank message box, trying to find words that wouldn't sound unhinged. How do you tell a stranger that you think your spouse is involved with hers? How do you open that conversation without sounding like you've already lost your mind? I typed 4 drafts, deleted all of them. Finally, I wrote something simple. Ms. Voss, we've never met, but I believe we have a shared situation that needs discussion. My name is Evan Hale. I'm married to Marissa Hale, who works with your husband's company on the Vitamed partnership. I think we need to compare notes. If you're willing to meet, I can explain in person. No drama, just clarity. My number is below if you prefer to call first. I read it 3 times. Hit send before I could second-guess myself again. Then I closed the laptop and tried not to calculate how long it would take for a response. Tried not to imagine her reading it and thinking I was some paranoid husband looking for conspiracies. My phone buzzed 30 seconds later. I've been waiting for someone to say his name. I stared at the message. Read it again. A second text came through. Coffee tomorrow morning, 9. There's a diner on Fletcher Street called Rosie's, quiet booth in the back. I typed back, I'll be there. That night, I barely slept. Lay in the guest room bed, listening to Marissa come home just after midnight, heard her moving around in the kitchen, the soft click of her bedroom door closing. In the morning, she was already gone before I woke up. A note on the counter said, "Early meeting. See you tonight." I crumpled it and threw it in the trash. Rosie's diner looked like every forgotten breakfast place in America. Vinyl booths, laminate tables, a waitress who'd probably been working there since before I was born. I got there at 8:50 and slid into a back booth where I could see the door. Tessa Voss walked in at exactly 9. She spotted me immediately, like she'd known what I'd look like. Maybe she'd done the same online research I had. She sat down across from me without a word. Up close, she looked tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from a bad night's sleep. The kind that settles into your bones after months of carrying something heavy. "Evan," she said. Not a question. "Tessa." The waitress came over. We both ordered coffee. Neither of us touched the menus. When the waitress left, Tessa leaned back and studied me with those sharp eyes. "How long have you known?" she asked. "Couple of weeks. suspected longer. I've known for 3 months, she said flatly, but I've been collecting proof for 6. She pulled out her phone, opened a folder, and slid it across the table. I scrolled through screenshots, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, text message previews, calendar conflicts, a whole file of evidence, organized and dated. There are 3 others, Tessa said, her voice steady. Before your wife, Grant has a pattern. I looked up at her. And you stayed? For the same reason you're still in that house, she said. Because I needed time to build a case. Because I have 2 kids and a prenup that could screw me if I leave without proving fault. Because I wanted to make sure when I finally moved, it would count. I handed her phone back. Thought about my own scattered notes and incomplete timeline. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you contacted me, she said. Which means you're not going to ignore this. Which means we have the same goal, and 2 betrayed spouses with shared evidence are a lot more credible than 1. The coffee arrived. We both let it sit. What do you know about the gala? I asked. Tessa's expression sharpened. That's 2 weeks away. Grant's been preparing for months. Big announcement. Career milestone. Something about a regional partnership that's going to make Vitamed the exclusive provider for your hospital network. And Marissa's involved? She's the PR face, Tessa said. Your wife's been managing the communications rollout. Grant brought her into the deal as part of the pitch. They've been working together since before the affair started. Maybe that's how it began. Hard to say where business networking ends and everything else begins. I thought about the parking garage conversation. Dana wants the announcement clean. Who's Dana? I asked. Dana Klein, Marissa's boss, VP of Communications, known for being ruthless about brand image. Tessa sipped her coffee, made a face. If anything threatens the optics of that announcement, Dana will remove it. Fast. Remove what? Whatever's in the way, Tessa said. A person, a deal, a reputation. She doesn't care. She cares about results. I leaned forward. So if we want to make this hurt, we wait, Tessa interrupted. We let them build their perfect moment, and then we make sure everyone watching knows exactly what they are. We sat there in that diner booth, 2 people who'd never met before today, united by the kind of betrayal that strips away polite pretense. What about proof? I said. We need more than screenshots and hotel receipts. I have financial records, Tessa said. Joint account statements showing charges Grant tried to hide. I have timestamps and locations. I have a private investigator's report that cost me $8,000 and confirms everything. I have access to hospital security logs, I said slowly. Vendor sign-in records, meeting room reservations, all above board, all through my job. Nothing illegal. Tessa smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. Then we have enough, she said. We just need timing. The gala. The gala, she agreed. Maximum audience, maximum damage. They want to announce a clean partnership? We'll show them what they're really celebrating. We talked for another hour, went through logistics, evidence chains, backup plans. By the time we finished, we had the outline of something solid. Not revenge, not yet, but the foundation for it. When we stood to leave, Tessa held out her hand. I shook it. I'm not doing this out of spite, she said. I'm doing it because they made a choice, and choices have consequences. I want them to understand that. Agreed, I said. She walked out first. I stayed behind for another minute, finishing my coffee. My phone buzzed, a text from Marissa. Dinner tonight? Home by 7? I stared at the message. Thought about her standing in that parking garage with Grant. Thought about the gala and the announcement and the careful construction of a public image built on private lies. I typed back, Sure, see you then. Then I paid the check and walked out into the gray morning. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel lost. I felt focused, because I finally had something Marissa didn't know I had, an ally, a plan, and a timeline. Marissa came home at 7:15, carrying takeout bags and an apologetic smile. Sorry I'm late, she said, setting the food on the kitchen counter. Traffic was terrible. No problem, I said, not looking up from my laptop. She hesitated in the doorway, like she was waiting for me to ask about her day, or comment on the food, or do something that resembled caring. I did none of those things. After a moment, she started unpacking the containers. Thai food. My favorite, once upon a time. Now it just looked like a prop in a play about functional cohabitation. I got you the pineapple curry, she said. Thanks. Another beat of silence. She pulled out plates, served food, sat down across from me. I closed my laptop and ate without conversation. The curry was fine. Probably good, even. I couldn't really taste it. Marissa picked at her noodles, glancing at me every few seconds like she was trying to solve a puzzle. You're being weird, she finally said. Am I? Yes, you're being too quiet. I looked at her directly for the first time since she'd walked in. You said we're roommates. Roommates don't need to fill silence with small talk. Her jaw tightened. I didn't mean we should stop communicating entirely. Then what did you mean? I meant... She set down her fork. I meant we should have realistic expectations. I meant we should stop pretending this is something it's not. Got it, I said. No pretending. I can do that. I stood up, rinsed my plate, put it in the dishwasher. Marissa watched me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Frustration, maybe. Or confusion. I have that gala coming up in 2 weeks, she said, changing tactics. The Healthcare Foundation event. I'll need you to come. I paused, hand on the dishwasher door. Why? Because it's important for my work. Because it looks better if I bring my husband. You mean it looks better if you bring your roommate who's willing to play pretend for a night? Her face flushed. Don't be like this. Like what? I turned to face her. You set the terms, Marissa. You said no expectations, no obligations. So which is it? Are we roommates or do I owe you appearances at work events? She stood up, crossed her arms. I'm asking for one night. A few hours. Is that really too much? No, I said calmly. I'll be there. Smile, shake hands, play the supportive partner. I can do that. But don't pretend it means anything beyond the performance. I left her standing in the kitchen and went to my room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at nothing. My phone buzzed. Text from Tessa. Grant's out of town tomorrow through Friday. Company conference. Perfect time to finalize documentation. I typed back, agreed, let's meet Thursday. Over the next week, I stopped doing all the small maintenance tasks that keep a marriage running. Stopped picking up her dry cleaning when I got mine. Stopped refilling the coffee filters. Stopped asking how her day went or if she needed anything from the store. Not out of spite. Not really. Just out of logic. Roommates have separate lives, separate routines, separate everything. Marissa noticed. I could see it in the way she'd pause in the doorway of my room, like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out what. In the way she'd start a sentence at dinner and then trail off. But she didn't call me on it, didn't ask me to go back to the way things were. Because that would mean admitting the way things were wasn't working for her anymore. And Marissa was too committed to her narrative to do that. Thursday afternoon, I met Tessa at a coffee shop across town. We sat in a corner booth with laptops and spreadsheets and the kind of organized fury that comes from months of documentation. Timeline check, Tessa said, pulling up a shared document. We have hotel receipts going back 14 weeks. Security log entries showing Grant at your hospital after hours 8 times in the last 2 months. Credit card statements proving unexplained charges. I have calendar conflicts, I said, adding my own notes. Meeting room reservation records, photos from a networking event 3 weeks ago, and witness confirmation from a colleague about vendor badge patterns. We cross-referenced dates, made sure everything lined up, found 3 separate occasions where Grant had logged into the hospital at the same time Marissa had a work dinner marked on her calendar. They weren't even being careful, Tessa said, almost admiringly. They thought routine and confidence would make them invisible. People always think that, I said. We worked for another hour, building a presentation packet, clean, professional, irrefutable. Who do we send this to? I asked. Dana Klein, Tessa said immediately. The night of the gala. Not before. We wait until they're on stage, in front of everyone, committed to the moment. Then we make sure Dana sees it. Won't she try to bury it? She'll try, Tessa agreed. But if we copy the right people, board members, major sponsors, compliance, she won't have a choice. The damage will be done before she can spin it. I thought about Marissa asking me to smile and shake hands and play my part. What about after? I asked. After the gala. That's when we file formally, Tessa said. Divorce papers, HR complaints if applicable, everything we've held back. But the public exposure happens first. That's the part that matters. We finished the packet, saved it to a shared drive with password protection, made backup copies. When we left the coffee shop, the sun was setting. Tessa paused by her car. Are you sure about this? She asked. Once we do it, there's no taking it back. I'm sure, I said. You? I stopped being unsure the day I found the third hotel receipt, she said. This isn't about getting even. It's about consequences. Real ones. The kind people like Grant and Marissa don't think apply to them. She got in her car and drove away. I stood there in the parking lot for a minute, watching the last light fade from the sky. Then I drove home. Marissa was in the living room when I got there, working on her laptop. She looked up when I walked in. Where were you? She asked. Out, I said. Doing what? Roommate stuff. I headed toward my room. Why? Do we owe each other schedules? She didn't answer, but I felt her watching me as I walked away. That night, lying in my separate bed in my separate room, I thought about the next 2 weeks. Thought about the moment when everything Marissa had built would collapse in front of the people whose opinions she valued most. I didn't feel good about it. Didn't feel righteous or justified. I just felt cold, prepared, ready. Because she'd been right about one thing. We didn't owe each other anything anymore. And that meant I didn't owe her protection from the truth. I saw Grant Voss in person for the first time at a hospital vendor reception. It was one of those networking events facilities management had to attend occasionally, the kind where pharmaceutical reps and medical device salespeople mingled with hospital staff over cheap wine and cheese cubes. I usually avoided them, but this time I'd made an exception, because I wanted to see him, wanted to put a face to the name, wanted to understand what my wife had chosen instead of me. The event was in a conference room on the 3rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the parking lot. I arrived exactly on time, grabbed a drink I wouldn't finish, and positioned myself near the back wall where I could watch without being obvious. Grant arrived 20 minutes later. I recognized him immediately from his LinkedIn photo, though he looked more polished in person. Expensive suit, easy smile, the kind of confidence that comes from years of convincing people to trust him. He worked the room like a professional, shaking hands, laughing at jokes, making everyone feel like they were the most interesting person he'd talked to all night. I watched him for 15 minutes, studied his patterns, the way he touched people's shoulders when he talked to them, the way he angled his body to make conversations feel intimate, even in a crowded room, the practiced charm that probably worked on people who didn't know better. Then I walked over to the drinks table at the exact moment he did. "Excuse me," I said, reaching past him for a bottle of water. He glanced at me, already starting his automatic smile. "No problem, man." I straightened up, held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds longer than casual courtesy required. "Evan Hale, I'm with facilities management." His smile didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition? Uncertainty? Hard to tell. "Grant Voss," he said, extending his hand. "VitaMed Solutions." I shook it. His grip was firm, practiced, probably coached by some sales training seminar. "Right," I said casually. "You've been on site quite a bit. I've seen your name in the visitor logs." Partnership development, he said smoothly. Your hospital's been great to work with. I'm sure, I said. My wife works on the PR side of that partnership, actually. Marissa Hale. You probably know her. This time the flicker was unmistakable. Just a microsecond of calculation before the smile reasserted itself. Marissa, sure. Smart woman. Great at what she does. She is, I agreed. We've been married 7 years. The silence that followed lasted maybe 3 seconds. It felt longer. Grant recovered quickly, shifting his weight slightly, his body language still relaxed. That's great, man. You must be proud. I am, I said. She's very dedicated to her work, puts in a lot of hours, evening meetings, weekend conferences, the whole package. Healthcare industry can be demanding, Grant said. His tone was still friendly, but there was a new carefulness to it. It can, I said. Hey, you're married too, right? I think I saw a photo on your company profile. Yeah, he said. Tessa, we've been together 12 years. That's impressive, I said. Must be nice having someone who understands the travel schedule. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. It has its challenges. I nodded, took a sip of water, let the silence stretch. Well, Grant said finally, I should probably keep making the rounds. Good to meet you, Evan. You too, I said. I'm sure we'll see each other again. At the gala, maybe. Marissa's making me go. He was already turning away, but he paused. Right. The gala should be a good event. Should be, I agreed. He walked away quickly, not quite hurried, but definitely not leisurely. I watched him cross the room, watched him pull out his phone the second he thought no one was looking. I finished my water, threw the bottle away, and left the reception. When I got to my car, I sat there for a minute thinking about that conversation, about the way Grant's expression had changed when I'd mentioned Marissa, about the calculation in his eyes when I'd said my name. He knew who I was. Maybe Marissa had mentioned me, maybe not, but he knew enough to recognize the threat. Good. My phone buzzed. Text from Marissa. Where are you? I checked the time. 7:30. She'd be wondering why I wasn't home yet. I typed back, hospital event, networking thing. Didn't know you had one tonight. Roommates don't always share schedules. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. Fine. See you when you get home. I didn't respond. Just started the car and drove. That night, Marissa was already in her room with the door closed when I got back. I went to my room, sat on the bed, and opened my laptop. I had an email from Tessa with a new attachment. Subject line. Updated timeline. I opened it. She'd added 3 more entries, all from the last week. New hotel charges, new meeting conflicts, new evidence of the pattern continuing. At the bottom of the document, she'd added a note. 10 days until the gala. Everything's in place. Are you ready? I typed back, yes. Then I closed the laptop and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. In 10 days, Marissa would walk into that gala expecting a triumph, expecting to stand on stage with Grant and announce their professional success to a room full of people who mattered. And I would be there, smiling, playing my part, right up until the moment when everything she'd built collapsed. The days before the gala moved with the slow inevitability of a storm building on the horizon. I could feel it in the house, in the air between Marissa and me, in the careful way we moved around each other like dancers who'd forgotten the steps. She was busier than usual. More meetings, more late nights, more phone calls behind closed doors. I watched her stress level rise, watched the way her shoulders stayed permanently tense, watched the way she checked her appearance in every reflective surface. This gala mattered to her, maybe more than anything in years. Good. I kept my routine simple: work, home, minimal conversation. I'd become exactly what she'd asked for: a roommate, polite, distant, uninvolved, but I was watching. always watching. 5 days before the gala, I noticed something that made my stomach turn. I came home early and found Marissa on the phone in the kitchen, her voice low and urgent. "Can't have any surprises," she was saying. "Dana's already on edge about the board presentation. If anything seems off—" She paused, listening. "I know," she said. "I trust you. Just, let's make sure everything's locked down before Friday." Another pause. "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow." Her voice softened. "Me too." She hung up and turned around, saw me standing in the doorway. "How long have you been there?" she asked, her face carefully neutral. "Just walked in," I said. Not quite true, but close enough. "That was work," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Final coordination stuff for the gala." Sounds stressful. It is. She set her phone down on the counter, face down. "This event is a big deal for my department, for my career." "I'm sure you'll do great," I said flatly. She studied me for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You're really committed to this whole detached thing, aren't you?" "You wanted roommates," I said. "I'm being a roommate." "That's not—" She stopped herself, took a breath. "Never mind. I don't have the energy for this conversation right now." She walked past me toward her bedroom. I stood there in the kitchen, looking at her phone on the counter. For a second, I thought about checking it. Thought about all the evidence I could probably find with just a few swipes. But I didn't need to. I already had enough. And touching her phone would make me the one breaking boundaries, the one who looked paranoid and desperate. I left it where it was and went to my room. 3 days before the gala, I met Tessa one last time to finalize everything. We sat in her car in a grocery store parking lot, both of us with laptops balanced on our knees, reviewing the evidence packet one more time. "Emails ready to send," Tessa said, showing me the draft. "Recipients, Dana Klein, 3 board members, 2 major sponsors, and hospital compliance. Attachments, timeline, receipts, witness statements, photos." "Timing?" I asked. 8:30 p.m. on Friday. That's 30 minutes into the gala, right after the opening remarks but before the main announcement. She looked at me. "Once I hit send, there's no going back." "I know. Dana will see it on her phone. So will the board members. They'll be in the same room as Grant and Marissa when it lands." I imagined it. The phone screens lighting up around the ballroom, the sudden attention shifts, the whispers starting. "They'll try to damage control," I said. "They will," Tessa agreed. "But with that many people copied, the story will spread faster than they can contain it. By the time the night's over, everyone in that room will know." We sat there in the quiet car, 2 people who'd been strangers 6 weeks ago, now bound together by a shared purpose. "My lawyer has the divorce papers ready to file Monday morning," Tessa said. "Fault-based, with this evidence as supporting documentation. What about you?" "Same," I said. "Monday morning, while she's still trying to figure out what happened." Tessa closed her laptop. "Last chance to back out." "I'm not backing out," I said. "Are you?" "No." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I want to watch it happen. I want to see his face when he realizes what's coming." "I'll be watching hers," I said. We said goodbye. She drove away. I sat in my car for another minute, hands on the steering wheel, staring through the windshield at nothing. 2 days until the gala. 48 hours until everything changed. I drove home. Marissa was in the living room with her laptop, working on what looked like a presentation deck. "Final prep?" I asked. "Yeah." She didn't look up. "This has to be perfect." "It will be," I said. She glanced at me then, something uncertain in her expression. "You're still coming Friday, right?" I said I would. "I know, I just—" She closed the laptop. "I know things have been weird between us. I know I'm asking a lot, expecting you to show up and smile when we're barely speaking. But this really matters to me, Evan. This is the biggest professional moment of my career." I looked at her sitting there on the couch, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen in months. Part of me wanted to warn her, wanted to tell her that her perfect moment was about to become a nightmare. But I thought about the parking garage, about Grant's hand on her back, about the way she'd said, "Me too," on the phone. "I'll be there," I said. "Wouldn't miss it." Relief crossed her face. "Thank you. Really." I nodded and went to my room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed. One more day. One more day of pretending everything was normal. One more day of being the supportive husband who didn't know what was happening behind his back. Then Friday would come. The gala would begin, and the truth would land like a bomb in the middle of Marissa's perfect professional moment. I thought about calling Tessa, thought about double-checking the plan one more time. Instead, I lay back on the bed and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would be the last normal day, the last day before everything broke, and I was ready for it to break. The ballroom was exactly what I'd expected. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, centerpieces that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. The kind of event where everyone wore their professional smiles and expensive clothes like armor. I'd rented a tuxedo. Marissa had insisted on that much. Said it would look better if I matched the dress code. I'd agreed without argument. I could play the part for one more night. We arrived at 7:30. Marissa was wearing a navy dress that probably had a designer label I wouldn't recognize, her hair styled in a way that looked effortless, but had probably taken an hour. She looked beautiful, polished, like someone who had everything under control. I wondered how long that look would last. "Stay close," she said as we walked into the ballroom. "I'll need to introduce you to some people." "Sure," I said. She took my arm. It felt performative, like we were playing a scene from a movie about a functional marriage. The room was already half full. Hospital administrators, healthcare executives, corporate sponsors, everyone networking, making connections, working the room. I recognized a few faces from work. Saw Nolan near the bar, looking uncomfortable in a suit. He caught my eye and nodded. I nodded back. Marissa led me through a series of introductions. Her colleagues, her boss, Dana Klein, a few board members whose names I immediately forgot. I shook hands, smiled, said the appropriate things, played the supportive husband with the right amount of pride in my wife's success. Everyone believed it. Why wouldn't they? At 8 o'clock, I spotted Grant across the room. He was standing with a small group, drink in hand, laughing at something someone had said. He looked confident, comfortable. He hadn't seen me yet. Marissa's hand tightened on my arm. "I need to go check on the presentation setup. Will you be okay for a few minutes?" "I'll be fine," I said. She hesitated like she wanted to say something else, then just squeezed my arm and walked away. I stood there with my untouched drink, watching the room, watching the patterns, the way people clustered and separated, the way power moved through conversations. My phone was in my pocket, set to vibrate. I'd synced it with Tessa's email account. The second she sent that message, I'd know. 8:15. The MC stepped up to the podium and asked everyone to find their seats. I followed Marissa to a table near the front, sitting beside her as the lights dimmed slightly. The program began. Welcome remarks, thank yous to sponsors. A brief video about the hospital foundation's work. I watched Marissa out of the corner of my eye. She was tense, focused. Her phone was on the table beside her plate, face up. She kept glancing at it, checking the time. At 8:25, Grant took the stage. "Good evening," he said, his voice warm and professional. "I'm honored to be here representing Vitamed Solutions as we announce a partnership that we believe will transform regional healthcare delivery." Applause, smiles. Marissa sat up straighter. Grant continued talking. Partnership details, innovation, community impact. The words were smooth, rehearsed. He was good at this, selling the story, making people believe. 8:28. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. I didn't need to check it. I knew what it meant. The email had been sent. I counted silently, estimated how long it would take people to notice, to open their phones under the table and see what had just landed in their inboxes. 30 seconds. A minute. Dana Klein's phone lit up on the table in front of her. She glanced down, frowned slightly, picked it up. I watched her face change, watched confusion turn to shock, turn to something cold and calculating. She looked at Marissa, then at Grant on stage, then back at her phone. More phones started lighting up around the room. Board members, sponsors, senior staff. The whispers started. Grant was still talking, oblivious. And with the support of leaders like Marissa Hale, who's been instrumental in developing the communications strategy. He gestured toward our table. Marissa started to stand, her professional smile in place. Dana reached over and gripped her arm, held her in place. "Don't," Dana said, her voice low but sharp enough that I could hear it. Marissa looked at her, confused. "What?" "Check your phone," Dana said. Marissa looked down. Her phone was lighting up with notifications, messages, emails. She picked it up, unlocked it, started reading. I watched the color drain from her face. On stage, Grant had paused, seeming to sense something was wrong. The energy in the room had shifted. People were no longer paying attention to him. They were looking at their phones, looking at each other, whispering. Someone near the back said something that carried across the room. "Are you seeing this?" Grant's smile faltered. He looked toward our table, toward Marissa. She was staring at her phone like it had turned into something venomous. Then she looked at me. Her eyes were wide, shocked, betrayed. I looked back at her calmly, didn't smile, didn't gloat, just held her gaze and let her see that I'd known all along. "Evan," she whispered. "What did you do?" "Nothing illegal," I said quietly. "Just the truth." Dana stood up abruptly, her chair scraping back. She was already walking toward the stage, phone in hand, her expression like steel. Other people were standing now too. Board members conferring in urgent whispers, sponsors looking uncomfortable, the MC trying to figure out what was happening. Grant saw Dana approaching and his face went white. "I think we need to take a break," he said into the microphone, his smooth voice finally cracking. "Technical difficulties. Step away from the podium," Dana said, not bothering with the microphone. Her voice carried anyway. Cold. Absolute. "Now." The room had gone mostly quiet, everyone watching, everyone waiting. Grant looked around wildly, saw all the phones, saw the expressions on people's faces, saw his professional mask beginning to crack. Then he saw me. Our eyes met across the ballroom, and in that moment, he knew. He knew who'd done this, knew that the anonymous evidence packet hadn't been anonymous at all. His face twisted, anger replacing shock. He stepped away from the podium and walked straight toward our table. "You," he said, pointing at me. "You did this." I stood up slowly, looked at him, didn't raise my voice. "I just made sure people knew what they were celebrating," I said. "You son of a—" Grant started forward. Nolan was there instantly. Must have been watching from the bar. He stepped between Grant and me, his security instincts kicking in. "That's enough," Nolan said calmly. "Back off." "Do you know what he did?" Grant was shouting now. "Do you know what he just destroyed?" "Yeah," Nolan said. "Looks like he destroyed a lie. Calm down." Marissa was on her feet now, too, her face pale. "Evan, we need to talk. Right now." "We're just roommates," I said quietly. "Remember? We don't owe each other explanations." Her eyes filled with something that might have been tears. "How could you do this?" "How could I?" I looked at her, really looked at her. "You stood in our kitchen and told me we were nothing. You made me feel like I was crazy for noticing you'd left our marriage, and all of it was so you could do this." I gestured around the room. "So you could stand on a stage and pretend to be someone you're not." "That's not fair," she said, her voice breaking. You're right, I said. It's not. None of this has been fair. Dana was beside us now, her face carved from ice. Marissa, my office, Monday morning. Don't be late. Dana, I can explain. I don't want to hear it now, Dana cut her off. You've made this company a liability. We'll discuss consequences Monday. She walked away without waiting for a response. The ballroom was in chaos now, people leaving, people gathering in clusters to discuss what had just happened. The MC had given up trying to restore order. Grant was still standing there, being held back by Nolan and another security guard. He was staring at Marissa with something that looked like disgust. You said this was handled, he hissed at her. You said your husband was under control. I thought he was, Marissa whispered. Well, congratulations, Grant said bitterly. You just destroyed both of us. He shook off Nolan's grip and walked away, pulling out his phone. Marissa turned back to me. Tears were streaming down her face now, ruining her careful makeup. We're done, she said. Her voice was shaking. I want you out of the house. Already planned on it, I said. Divorce papers will be filed Monday. You'll be served by end of week. Her mouth opened, closed. She looked at me like I'd become someone she didn't recognize. Maybe I had. I loved you, she said finally. I actually loved you. Past tense? I asked. She didn't answer, just turned and walked away, pushing through the crowd toward the exit. I stood there in the ballroom, surrounded by the wreckage of her perfect moment. Nolan came up beside me. You okay? Yeah, I said. I'm okay. That was cold, he said. Not quite approving, not quite disapproving, just stating fact. It was necessary, I said. He nodded slowly. You need a ride home? No, I'm good. I walked out of the ballroom, through the hotel lobby, into the parking lot. The night air was cool against my face. I could still hear the chaos inside, muffled by distance and walls. My phone buzzed. Text from Tessa. It's done. Grant just got pulled aside by his company's legal team. They're talking termination. I typed back, good. Then I got in my car and drove away. I didn't know what came next. Didn't know how the divorce would play out, or what Marissa would do, or how Grant's career would unravel. But I knew one thing. They'd made their choice, built their lie, convinced themselves they could control the narrative. And I'd shown them what happens when someone stops playing along. I woke up in a hotel room. After leaving the gala, I'd driven straight to a chain hotel near the highway and checked in for the weekend. Didn't want to go back to the house. Didn't want to see Marissa's face or deal with whatever confrontation would come. I just wanted silence. My phone had blown up overnight. 17 missed calls from Marissa. 12 text messages. 3 voicemails I hadn't listened to. I scrolled through the texts. We need to talk. Pick up your phone. You can't just destroy everything and disappear. I know I hurt you, but this wasn't the way. Everyone knows now. Everyone. Dana called me at midnight. I'm probably going to be fired. Grant won't answer my calls. Please just talk to me. The last one, sent at 3 a.m. I didn't think you had it in you. I stared at that one for a long time. Didn't know if it was an insult or a compliment or just the exhausted observation of someone who'd underestimated me. Probably all 3. I deleted the messages, blocked her number. Then I called the divorce attorney I'd consulted 2 weeks ago. It's done, I said when she answered. Everything happened exactly as planned. I need those papers filed first thing Monday. I'll have them ready, she said. Fault-based, citing adultery as grounds. With the evidence you've provided, this should be straightforward. Good. Mr. Hale, she paused, you understand this is going to get ugly, right? She's not going to go quietly. I don't care, I said. I'm done being quiet. I hung up, sat there on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at the generic art on the wall. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. This is Evan. Mr. Hale, this is Dana Klein. I sat up straighter. Ms. Klein. I'm calling to inform you that Marissa Hale is no longer employed by our organization. Her termination was effective as of 8 o'clock this morning. I see. I'm also calling to tell you that what you did last night was calculated and ruthless. She paused. I respect that. But if you ever put this company in the crosshairs again, I'll make sure you regret it. Understood, I said. One more thing, Dana said. The VitaMed partnership is being dissolved. Grant Voss has been removed from his position pending an internal investigation. Whatever you and Mrs. Voss uncovered, it was enough to trigger a full compliance review. He had it coming. He did, Dana agreed. So did Marissa. But I want you to understand something. In this industry, reputation is currency. And last night, you made sure both of them are bankrupt. That's not justice. That's warfare. They declared war first, I said. I just chose when to fire back. She was quiet for a moment. Fair enough. Goodbye, Mr. Hale. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, processing what she'd said. Marissa had lost her job, her reputation, her professional future in this city. Grant had lost his position, his credibility, probably his marriage, too, knowing Tessa. They'd both lost everything they'd built. I waited to feel guilty, waited to feel like I'd gone too far. The feeling didn't come. My phone buzzed, text from Tessa. Divorce papers filed this morning. Grant was served an hour ago. How are you holding up? I typed back, papers filing Monday. I'm okay. You? Better than I've been in months. Freedom feels strange. Yeah, I typed. It does. I spent the weekend in that hotel room, ordered room service, watched mindless television, let the exhaustion of the last few weeks catch up to me. On Monday morning, I drove to the house. Marissa's car was gone. Good. I went inside, packed a suitcase with clothes and essentials, looked around at what had been our home for 5 years. It didn't feel like home anymore, just looked like a stage set for a play that had closed. I left most of my stuff. Didn't matter. I'd come back for it later once the divorce was further along. On the kitchen counter, I found a note in Marissa's handwriting. I didn't think you were capable of this. I was wrong about a lot of things. No apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd done, just the observation that I'd surprised her. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Then I walked out, locked the door behind me, and drove away. I had a consultation with my attorney at 2. Had to start planning the logistics of disentangling 7 years of shared life. But right now, I just drove. No destination. Just drove through the city with the windows down and the radio off. The silence felt right. For months, I'd felt like I was drowning, like I was watching my life collapse and couldn't do anything about it. Now, I'd done something, had taken control of the narrative, had shown Marissa and Grant that consequences were real and unavoidable, and I didn't regret it. Not the planning, not the timing, not the public exposure, because they'd made their choices, built their lie, convinced themselves they could have everything without cost, and I'd simply made sure the bill came due. My phone buzzed, text from Nolan. You good? I typed back, yeah, thanks for stepping in Friday. Anytime? Beer sometime this week? Definitely. I drove to a coffee shop I'd never been to before, sat at a table by the window, ordered something I didn't usually drink, started making a list of what came next. Find an apartment, finish the divorce, figure out what normal looked like now. It was a short list, simple, manageable. For the first time in months, the future didn't feel like something I was trying to survive. It felt like something I could build, on my own terms, without lies, without scripts about being roommates or obligations or expectations, just clean, empty, mine. I finished my coffee, threw away the cup, walked back to my car. The sun was out, traffic was light, the day felt ordinary, and ordinary felt like exactly what I needed.